Okay, how we doing? Hola todos. Welcome to week 6, our last week in our rapid fire blitz through persuasion this summer. Before we get into doing our questions for week 6, I wanted to do a high level overview of the big 6 from Cialdini. And in my opinion, if I were to rank order these, I've been hinting at this, pretty much every time we've done a video, so I'm being consistent here. I would have reciprocity as number 1. I think reciprocity is the most powerful of the 6 discussed in this book. In my opinion, I think scarcity, this week's module, is probably the second most powerful. I'd probably put social proof third and authority fourth. And then I'd have liking fifth, and I'd have commitment, consistency sixth. And even when I did this, I had reciprocity, scarcity, social proof, and authority on one side of my sheet, and I had liking and commitment and consistency on another side of the sheet. I think liking, commitment, and consistency are more slow-moving persuasion things. They take longer for their effect to happen. Reciprocity does not take long. Scarcity does not take long. Social proof does not take as long. Authority does not take as long. We had an excellent set of questions for this week. I have some of my own thoughts I'm going to shove in there. Besides World Cup, and Apple, I'm a huge fan of cars. I see almost a Tesla every day now. Almost. So Joe's asking why grumpy car dealers are helping Tesla. And the answer to this is they have no idea that they're helping Tesla, but they are in fact helping Tesla. Joe asks, does Tesla purposely create scarcity, or do they really have difficulty producing enough lithium batteries to power their cars? Being that I think Tesla is probably one of the top 5 most interesting companies to follow in the last 2 to 3 years. I've been reading a lot about Tesla and Mr. Musk. It is definitely the latter. They do not have the production capacity to meet demand. They just do not have it. That's why they only make one car at a time, basically. They're having a very difficult time getting their SUV off, which will be debuting this January. But they really do have a lithium battery issue problem. And they're building their own lithium battery power plant that supposedly they're going to have online and building their own batteries as opposed to buying them from, I believe, Panasonic. Within the next 5 years, the battery, he has said, is the most expensive component of the entire car. Somewhere around 50% of the cost of a Tesla are the batteries. So they have production problems. And this production issues, difficulties, challengings, whatever you want to call it, is helping with the scarcity issue. I don't think Tesla is doing it on purpose by any stretch of the imagination. Tesla actually has a decent amount of debt. If they could sell more cars, they would. But they really can't. They sell them as soon as they are produced. So I don't think they're purposely doing it. Now, this is another question. What is their strategy in sharing their patents? Just to give a little background to everyone in class, Tesla is all the patents that they have for their particular cars. The owner, Elon Musk, is opening up those patents for others to use. Now, I believe he's doing this without a fee. I believe he's just sharing them freely. And to many people, this seems like the opposite of what people should do. Normally you hold on to your patents and you charge a fee for them if people want to license a particular technology. But Tesla does not. Right now, Tesla is battling Detroit, South Korea, Japan, and then plus the other markets in the world, China and India and Brazil, most of Europe, Germany, France, England. They're going this alone. They're having a decent amount of success all by themselves. there's only 3 or 4 or 5 electric cars manufactured consistently around the world. Nissan has one, Toyota has one, a pure electric car. In order for Tesla to be successful, he needs an industry. He actually needs competitors. Not because Tesla needs to improve their cars in that way. They need to build the marketplace. And right now, there's not a strong enough marketplace. For instance, right now, Tesla, the corporation, has to foot the bill for every electric station across the country. You want to be able to drive a Tesla from New York to California. He's gone on record saying that he wants to do that. He's got to build all the charging stations for that. He doesn't have Toyota helping them or General Motors helping them. He needs an industry. And he's been trying to standardize the port on all electric cars and plug-in cars so everybody uses the same port. Let me open this up a little bit. So that's why he's sharing the patents, basically. Let me zoom this up a little bit. I think Tesla's quite interesting. All right, Mr. Dan. He's talking about Jakarta and real estate. Now, there's been a number of different people asking around the same question. So I'm going to read Dan's and then I'm going to comment here. Can the scarcity tactic or strategy make people act irrationally or inefficiently? Yes, yes, and oh yes, yes. Or is it just how markets work? Well, markets are governed by humans. Humans by nature are irrational and emotional. So yes, that's also how markets work. People behave irrationally, and markets are also not rational because they're organized or conducted by humans. The value of a product or service is different for each person, and the utility they get out of it may make perfect sense in one case but not the other. That's absolutely the case. Scarcity almost is like an accelerant. We started this video talking about the various, how fast some of these persuasion techniques work. Well, social proof and scarcity are probably the 2 fastest of the 6. And scarcity might be the fastest. You can imbue scarcity, and you could probably persuade someone quicker with a scarcity tactic than a commitment one, a consistency one, a liking one. Scarcity is, in my opinion, like an accelerant. And yes, it does get people to act emotionally, irrationally, and inefficiently. There's no question. Now, a number of us ask the ethics of this in further topic talks as I go down. I'll get to that. Tiffany knows that I like Apple. Now, Tiffany didn't have an explicit question, but what I liked about Tiffany's topic talk is that within hers, she not only talks about scarcity. When you get a chance, read hers and make some comments there. But Apple's strategies in these 5 tools, there is an allusion to scarcity, and I'm going to talk about Apple in a second. There is some scarcity, but there's also authority, liking, commitment, and consistency, and social proof, without question. I mean, people get in line for Apple products, and that's actually a form of social proof. It must be really worth it because everybody's getting in line and the demand is there. Now, Apple in the past, I'm saying, for Apple of 4, 5, 6 years ago, there actually was more of a scarcity issue. Where Apple had a hard time figuring out what demand was or having enough parts for particular types units, and there really was a scarcity issue. Apple within the last, I'm going to say 2 years, has used the scarcity principle less and less and less. They've gotten much better with their supply chain. Really, all the scarcity, very much like Tesla up in the beginning, they weren't doing it purposely. They were doing it because the supply chain couldn't move any faster. There was only so many parts to make some of these units, and demand would outstrip supply. And if that was the case, then, there was this scarcity benefit to something like that. The other thing, as opposed to Tesla and more with Apple cares more about doing the product right than it does about overall revenue. So many times they will cap production to make sure that the product is right without decreasing. They'll make a trade-off for quality over quantity. So they had an issue last year with the 5S because the 5S had the fingerprint security thing, and they couldn't put it in other products because they only had so many of them. Well, that kind of created some scarcity for the 5S, and the demand for the 5S versus the 5C was significantly stronger than they thought it was going to be. And that wasn't something necessarily that they planned on, but they make a trade-off. All manufacturers make trade-offs here and there, and their trade-off is always for quality over quantity. And that usually has some kind of a scarcity effect to it. But in recent years, Apple has had less and less of this scarcity effect than they've had in previous incarnations. Steve Jobs loved to do stuff like this. Tim Cook is more about the supply chain. Mr. Kenneth, insider trading. I want to make a comment here that was very interesting to me as part of Kenneth's topic talk. First, let me answer his question. Considering Cialdini's point that limiting access to information causes individuals to want more, do you think people like this insider trader guy would be able to withhold seeking out his insider trading information even after conviction? I don't know. I really don't know. Would he be able to withhold? Here there's definitely an ethics issue. He's using this information, which is scarce, for his own personal profit, and he knows that it's against the law to do so, yet it was still occurring. So I don't know. You're purposely breaking the law here, and you're doing it for your own personal gain. This is unethical and illegal. So you can be, the weird thing about ethics is you could be unethical but not do something illegal. This is clearly a case where someone was being unethical and doing something illegal. Now, the other point that I want to come up to here is Cialdini points out that things are less accessible, we lose freedoms. This is a very big deal. I think this right here, losing freedoms, losing something, is a very powerful thing that motivates people to do. Sometimes it's because of scarcity, and something becomes scarce or could become scarce if we lose something. There is it's called prospect theory. It's also in the Daniel Kahneman book. He won a Nobel Prize in economics for it, even though he was a psychologist. We have much stronger effect, I guess you would call that, with losses than gains. They're not equal. Losing something versus gaining something, it's a much stronger emotional connection to us for a loss than it is for a gain. Gains don't last, losses last forever, or losses last for a longer amount of time. We do more to avoid losses than we do to secure gains. So this is a very big deal. Also in the Art of Choosing book, which I've thrown out many other times, she has a whole section on freedom, freedom 4 or freedom 2. This is a very big part of this persuasion and choosing type dialogue. If you want to know more about that, shoot me an email and I'll send you some page numbers. Okay. We have, what's interesting about this set of topic talks, we had some kind of, you could call it Similar themes or similar topic talks. So Ahmed and Leah were kind of in the same area, so even though they weren't in the same order in Blackboard, I kind of put their topic talks together. So Ahmed had an interesting topic talk about Record Store Day and the fact that vinyl is having a little bit of a comeback. Well, percentage-wise, vinyl's having a comeback, but unit sales itself, it's still extremely small and niche compared to the rest of the record industry. Just a sidebar comment. So once a year, independent record stores they get their Record Store Day. So Ahmed's asking, is there other examples for Record Store Day? Sure. Wine. I think there is this event in November. Then we have, it's not necessarily a scarcity thing, but it's more an event thing where we have the Beaujolais Nouveau, November 18th, November 2nd or 3rd week in November or something like that. You know, we do have, when we look into the commodities and future markets, when we think about, you know, the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, there's certain times of the year that without question, this is when stuff happens. You know, sometimes it's because of a scarcity principle. I mean, there's no reason why there's only one record store day. They could have more than one. They could do one a month. They could do one every 3 months. Back in the day, we have another one. We were talking about Tower Records. Tuesdays used to be the day when you would release a record for some reason or another. I don't know if it's just once a year is the magic thing. But there are advantages to having a schedule of release of products. So consumers and producers and sellers can kind of anticipate and plan and basically make a market. That's really what it comes down to. We're making a market. All right. Leah is staying in the music store space, and she's throwing Wu-Tang at us. And to be honest with you, I never heard of this particular thing that Wu-Tang is doing. But they are creating a 20th anniversary double album with 31 songs. They're making one copy of it, and they're going to auction it for $5 million. That's just crazy. It's going completely against the grain of what pretty much everybody else does, which is release it to the lowest common denominator and have the most amount of people possibly listen to it. Leave it to Wu-Tang to do something radically weird and different. You know, trendsetters. Some participants play slot machines at casinos for long periods of time in hopes of winning large payouts. Yes. Can a portion of this motivation be chalked to the scarcity of those large payouts? To be direct, Leah, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think scarcity is, if anything, the casinos don't do scarcity all that well. They want as many people coming in as they possibly can. You know, sometimes they have exclusive, exclusivity is something different, where they have certain areas roped off and they have certain tables that are $50 a hand, and that's a different ball game. They have certain high roller rooms, they have certain perks. But especially knowing what I know about statistics and knowing what I've read about casinos, this is more of a psychological principle. The motivation is called a near miss. What gets people to keep playing is slot machines are programmed to near miss more often. And it's scientifically proven that when you play and 2 cherries come up but not the third one, you feel like, oh, it's going to be coming soon because I just got 2, and you keep playing. And the slot machines are programmed to do this on a regular basis. You know, they'll say 30 to 40% of the times are near misses. 30 to 40% of the pulls will be near misses. Payouts are 1 out of 100. I mean, it's not random. They're programmed. They're programmed. I've had way too many statistics courses. And, statistics is probability. Probability is gambling. It's also, I can't look at a casino. There's no even odds in a casino. The more you play, the more you will lose. You may win every so often, but you will lose more in the long run, which is why casinos are so profitable. Okay, Praveen is talking about a $4 million Lamborghini. And I can't believe this guy wired $4 million without even seeing the car, but heck, there's only 3 of them. He gave us a very interesting story about saltwater coral. I have a friend of mine in Massachusetts who has a huge saltwater tank, and I have no idea how they grow all this stuff, and Praveen does know how to do all this. He's been doing it for a long time. But there's very few people who have expertise to do saltwater stuff. Saltwater's tough. You know, you got to have balances and all like that, and it's an ecosystem. And he talks about his interesting, colorful, and rare saltwater coral. So here's the first time we get into the ethics with scarcity. When does the use of scarcity negative impact or coexist with business ethics and morals? Okay. When the company is doing scarcity explicitly to manipulate, when there is no scarcity, then we're in an ethics moral problem. I don't think doing scarcity is a problem. You know, where we have a couple of these in a row. When I talk about the Adidas and Sam Smith, and even when we talk about the McRib, scarcity is not, I mean, as long as it's not a medicine or food, you know, if it's just a product, then I don't see there being an ethical or moral issue with scarcity, providing that the product is actually scarce. Now, I teach sales management. One of the classic selling salesperson closing techniques is called the standing room only close. For my Red Sox fans, who Fenway Park's been sold out every game for the last 10 years or so, sometimes you can only get tickets that you stand, and it's standing room only. That's the standing room only close. It's based on the principle of scarcity, right? Well, I don't have a problem with that if the tickets are truly scarce. If you limit production and the production is really only 100 pairs of sneakers. We'll get to that next. But if you are saying scarcity and it is not scarce, I have a problem with that. Then we started getting into an ethical moral issue. For instance, when you watch QVC or Home Shopping Network and they say only 25 products left, only 10 products left, and they're trying to imbue scarcity on the television set. But if you write down the product number and you call them and they say, oh, we're sold out, yeah, they'll still have it. To me, that's a moral ethical problem because they're trying to imbue scarcity to increase sales, to get people what this guy did with a $4 million in his Lamborghini, yet here there really is only 3 cars. QVC, Home Shopping Network, there's always product available. They don't turn it down. Okay, Carla, Frozen. Scarcity seems to be such a psychological play on the consumer. I think it ends up being a psychological play on the consumer. How important is this principle to the reputation of the company? Well, let me say, and before we talk about Disney, the related word with scarcity, which I've already said earlier, is exclusivity. Okay? When something is scarce, it becomes more exclusive. And if you have a higher end luxury product and there's no scarcity or exclusivity, it's not limited, it's not available to everyone, well then that has to be part of the reputation of the company. You know, one of the problems Mercedes had not that long ago is Mercedes was making this $25,000 hatchback Mercedes. Yet, when the $25,000 Mercedes pulled up to a stoplight with the $85,000 S-Class sedan, all of a sudden the S-Class sedan owner's like, wait a minute, my car's not that special anymore. When scruffy guy over there with a tank top can buy a Mercedes, my car's not that special anymore. So BMW wanted to go on the lower end, and BMW bought Mini to be the entry-level BMW. You know, to get away from that reputation of the company. You know, Toyota went in the opposite direction. They knew that no one was going to buy $40,000 or $45,000 Toyota, so they had to create a new brand, and they created Lexus. And they created another brand to attract younger buyers because no one wanted to buy a Toyota, so they created Scion. In my opinion, we are going to see a $150 or $200 iPhone in the next 12 to 18 months on the high side. It's just not going to be called an iPhone. It's going to be called a Beats phone. And it's probably one of the reasons why they bought the Beats brand. It's still a premium brand like Mini, but it's not a brand like Apple, where Apple still wants to have the $600 phone. They want to be the Mercedes-Benz or the BMW of the cell phone market. Yet they still want the revenue from the lower end of the market, but they don't want to cheapen the Apple iPhone brand. So they bought another brand that can be on the lower end of that spectrum. It would seem to me that a company would not want to give the perception that it is intentionally limiting supplies to increase demand, or is, well, if it's a luxury company and they're explicitly saying there's only 200 of these Rolexes being produced this year, I don't think that's hurting their reputation. It's part of the brand. But you wouldn't do that just for everything. Sometimes selling only 200 units of something at a very high margin and being exclusive is not as good as selling 200 million units of something at a lower margin. You have to do the math and figure out which end of the market you want to go. Speaking of the market, we have Felicia and Chris talking about soccer cleats. Not that I'm a huge soccer fan or anything. So, in association around the World Cup, both Puma and Adidas and Nike were having limited edition runs on soccer cleats. Nike did Cristiano Ronaldo. Puma did the 1982 shoe from their World Cup team from Italy. All right, let's see Felicia here. How does the principle of scarcity apply differently to things we need versus things we want? It seems to be so powerful when the scarce item is soccer cleats, but when it's scarce item like bread. Okay. Scarcity first of all products and services in the marketing realm can easily be divided into things we need to survive, like water, and things that we want. Okay? Want versus need. What a lot of marketers do is they take a need and turn it into a specific want. For instance, we don't need water, but we need liquid. Okay, we need liquid in our body, but it doesn't need to be Coke, it doesn't need to be Pepsi, and it doesn't need to be RC. And marketers will take a need and turn it into a specific one. We may need to know what time it is, but we don't need a Rolex. We may need to make a cell phone call, but we don't need an iPhone. So marketers are good at turning a need into a specific want. That's basically what marketers do. It is unethical to play the scarcity game with needs. I mean, it's not unethical to do it with wants, in my opinion. Bread, that's a need. That's a staple. You don't mess around with bread, milk, certain basic necessity. No. Wants, I don't have any problem with that at all. So, Mr. Chris, staying on the same topic talk, what role does scarcity, or the lack thereof, have on a company's brand and image in the eyes of the consumer? Well, usually scarcity pushes you more into that exclusivity, more into that premium direction. You're going towards that end of the continuum versus the lower end of the continuum. In almost all cases, Does this change for larger companies with many different product lines and availability? Well, I think Nike and some of these other companies, which really do play to the mass market, even with premium products, they play this exclusivity game in order to get a little more premium in the marketplace. I mean, Nike's been doing this with sneakers now for at least almost 8, 10, 12 years. You can go into Manhattan, they have a couple of the stores. You go to the Nike ID store and you get your sneakers personalized. It helps. But, that's when you have a company like Chevrolet, which really is geared to the masses, but then you have a limited edition Corvette. That gives a little cachet to the Corvette line and Chevrolet. When you have the Indy 500 pace car, Camaro, okay, it helps a little bit. It helps. Gisela talks about Sand Smiths, and you know something? As soon as she said that, I got an emotional response because I remember my Sand Smiths back in the day. You know, they were iconic. And Adidas pulling the scarcity trick. And what happens is I don't know if Adidas is pulling the scarcity trick or Travis, McDonald's is pulling the scarcity trick. So I'm going to talk about these in a second. Cialdini states that it's difficult to guard ourselves from the emotional responses that scarcity entices. I agree. Do you consider it unethical to create scarcity issues for the pure purpose of behavior manipulation? I don't think it's behavior manipulation if the product is really scarce. So let's talk about Adidas. And when you get a chance, read Travis's topic talk about the McRib. Okay? What happens is that there isn't enough flat-out demand in the normal marketplace for the Sand Smith. But if you make it a limited edition, semi-regular product, then it actually is in itself more of a niche-type product, and it has some viability in the marketplace. And they use scarcity to help with the viability. I don't think that that's a problem. I really don't think that that's a problem. Because when Adidas says that they have 2,000 pairs of the Sand Smiths, they have 2,000 pairs. They used to try to sell 20,000 pairs in a year, and yet they could only sell maybe 4,000. And that was not a viable option for them, you know, supply, demand, and everything. But when they create a limited edition of it, and they're on the level telling everyone that this is really a limited edition, yes, I don't have a problem. If they tell people it's a limited edition, yet it's not a limited edition at all, and they say, oh, there's going to be 200 pairs or 4,000 pairs, and then they sell 10,000 pairs, that's unethical. That is manipulation. But if you're being truthful for what you're saying the product is available, then no, I don't think it's a problem. The same thing here with Travis's topic talk and the McRib. And even when he was in college and he had all kinds of extra time, he drove 40 miles to go find a McRib sandwich. No problem. We do stuff like that when we were in college. We had the time. Is it a gimmick? Well, there wasn't enough demand for the McRib to be on the menu in every McDonald's everywhere. There just wasn't. So if you have it as a limited product here and there, then I don't think it's a problem. I really don't. It is effective. I don't know if it's exploitative as long as everybody knows that it's a limited edition. And as marketing professionals, you see the average going, no, yeah, I think I kind of hammered this pretty good. All right, so that's Gisela. Related to the Sand Smith Gisela, we have Lynn, and she's telling us about a sneaker stock market. It said it earlier in the article, in the chapter. I'm a baseball card guy. I'll send you a baseball card article here and there. You know, when things are limited or things are, you know, there's not that many of them around, there is this exclusivity thing, and it helps create demand. It helps increase price. So Lynn has an interesting question. According to behavioral economics, a person's act truly reflects his or her utility function. I don't know if this is behavior economics or just economics, because economics loves that utility function. Okay? And part of rational economics is the rational man, that we behave rationally. And I'm telling you right now, we do not behave rationally. We behave emotionally. We're usually irrational. Meaning, if one were to trade a premium price for what he or she wants, no matter fame, compliments, or scarcity, this behavior maximizes one's current utility. Yes. Or happiness, perhaps. If this is true, why should we stop them from doing so? Well, I'm a freedom guy. You know, I don't have an issue with this, and we've had this in a couple topic talks already. If it truly is scarce, if it is standing room only, I don't have a problem with it. If there's a concert and the Rolling Stones are coming to town and there's only 30,000 seats, well, then I don't have a problem with that. And I don't think we should stop them from doing so. Is depriving someone of something, say a toy, a pie, or a pair of shoes, or a man or a woman, by which he or she would be, from our very personal perspective, cheated, really mature as we think? I don't think it's an issue. I don't know if we're depriving someone, As long as the marketer or the salesperson is on the level saying, this is a limited time offer, and it truly is a limited time offer, and at the end of the month, this deal that I'm giving you at the special pricing will disappear. Salespeople do this all the time. They call you, they have a promotion, it's a limited time offer, it's going to end by the end of the week, and then the following Monday they come back with the same offer. That's unethical. That's unethical. Alexis is talking about Pebble watches, artificial scarcity or consumer demand. I think it's actually neither, to be honest with you. And going back to our Tesla scenario, Pebble is such a small company. They really did not have the manufacturing capacity to do the deal that they did with Best Buy. That was a supply chain issue that created some scarcity and some additional consumer demand on a product that really wasn't all that strong in the first place. Do you think there's such a thing as censorship in today's world, since instantaneous information is just a click away? Well, there's still censorship. We still have China. We still have North Korea. We still have Cuba. There's still censorship. Whether there's a black market in some of these, countries for the uncensorship. There's some very interesting social media articles about this in China and how things happen on Weibo and WeChat and a couple of the other social networks that, as long as it doesn't get too far out of line, the censors kind of let it ride. But they monitor it all the time. Can anything really be hidden from the public for so long, or do you think that some form of truth will always get out at some point? It can be hidden from the public for a certain amount of time. I think information spreads, especially if we have this, and we called it here in the chapter, it's a reactant. Sometimes you could make something more powerful by making it a reactant. Joe's topic talks, he talks about Romeo and Juliet. If the families would have just let them hang out, then I don't think there would have been a problem. Or at least, that's a different story, but that's the kind of thing. In the Art of Choosing book, there's a story about in Miami, in the southern Florida area, that there was a reactant type scenario where they took away certain detergents that had certain parts of the chemicals, such in Tide and in Cheer. And then all of a sudden there was a huge run on these products because all of a sudden, oh my God, you're taking these away from them. They created the scarcity by making it a reactant. Parents do this all the time with children. Oh, you can't watch this, you can't do this. Now the kids really want to do it. Right? You can imbue scarcity. I already talked about this one really good. Travis and his McRib story. And Mr. Chris. Dr. Dano, do you think there's a growing scarcity in lower-end jobs and people are being less inclined to take entry-level jobs for the fear of high-standing student loan payments? I think there is no question, both in the government side of your article and on the non-government side on your article, which was the follow-up comment underneath your article, and I'm sorry I forgot who posted it. There is definitely a supply and demand issue with jobs. And that's due to our economy more than anything else. Would censorship during Prohibition in the 20s go hand in hand when thinking about scarcity? Okay, different question. We all know what Prohibition and alcohol and the speakeasies and basically making alcohol reactant Yes, that's part of this issue. Alcohol became scarce, it became more valuable, people would do different things to get it, or do moonshine and all that other stuff. If so, did that lead to the pressures to lift from prohibition? And there was other issues that did it. I'm not a huge prohibition history buff, but I'm sure by making it a reactant, then there was an issue. Finally, out of the 6 principles by Cialdini, which do you feel is the hardest to attain and room for most improvement, and why? I think I started off this video talking about that, and the 6. My favorite, which ones are the fastest to persuasion. I don't know about room for improvement. These are all pretty tested. Some are just faster than others, I would say. All right, class. If you have any questions about anything I said here, shoot me an email. I look forward to other assignments that you're sending my way this week. Have a good one.